Sydney, 1969. A bar with no doors, neon bleeding into the night. Frank Nugan, a hungry lawyer, meets Michael Hand, a Green Beret who learned that wars need black money. Nugan leans in. "We're not building a bank." Hand doesn't smile. "We're building a pipeline." On the table, a checkbook, $80. Nugan circles it. Enough to start. Hand taps the ledger. Enough to hide. And in that moment, the ghost bank is born.
Success has a smell. In 1980, it smelled like diesel fumes and blood. They found him in a Mercedes-Benz 300 SD on a lonely stretch of road called 40 Benz. Frank Nugan, the man who claimed to bank for the world, head blown open by a .30 caliber rifle. The gun lies next to him, left hand near the barrel, right hand near the trigger. The coroner will call it suicide. The police will call it a tragedy. But history calls it the first loose end. He didn't die in a boardroom. He didn't die in a vault. He died in a sheep paddock, surrounded by the debris of a fractured mind. Look closely. On the left, the wrapper of a 50-cent meat pie, the food of the working class. On the right, the business card of William Colby, former director of the Central Intelligence Agency, the spy master of the Western world. Why is the spy master's card in a dead banker's car? Frank Nugan wasn't just a banker. He was the front man for the biggest laundry machine the Cold War ever built. A machine made of heroin, guns, and generals. They told you he killed himself. They lied. The bank didn't die with him because the bank was never really a bank at all. Frank Nugan, the fruit heir, born in Griffith, the marijuana capital of Australia. He was supposed to be the smart one, the lawyer. He went to Berkeley. He came back with an American accent and a wildly exaggerated resume. He wanted to be a titan, but Frank wasn't steel. He was soft fruit. He was a mediocre lawyer, a drunk. He needed validation. He needed to prove to the Sydney elite that the boy from the packing sheds was a king. But a king needs a knight. Frank needed a soldier. Enter Michael John Hand, the Bronx boy, the Green Beret. June 9th, 1965, the Battle of Dong Xuai. Hand holds off a Viet Cong siege for 14 hours, almost single-handedly. He takes shrapnel in the leg. He doesn't stop. He drags his commander to safety while firing a machine gun with one hand. The Distinguished Service Cross, the second highest honor the United States can give. He was a hero. But heroes don't always come home. Some stay in the jungle. Hand joined the secret war in Laos. He worked with the CIA's Hong Army. He flew on Air America, the airline that carried rice in the morning and heroin in the evening. Hand learned the most important lesson of the Cold War. Wars cost money, and Congress doesn't write checks for illegal wars. You need black budget. You need off the books. You need a bank that doesn't ask questions.
1969. Sydney. The lawyer and the soldier meet.
Nugan had the greed. Hand had the network. They didn't build a bank to hold money. They built a bank to hide it. And they started with a lie so big nobody thought to check the math. How do you start a merchant bank? You need capital. You need $1 million. Frank Nugan didn't have $1 million. He had $80, literally $80. The round robin, an elementary accounting trick. He paid the bank paid him back. The checks canceled each other out. The money never existed. But on the books, Nugan Hand Ltd. was capitalized. It was a hologram. A billion-dollar empire built on paper and air. They didn't speak English in this bank. They spoke spook. If you wanted to deposit Australian dollars, you deposited hides. If you wanted to move money to Singapore, you bought glassware. Silver bullion, televisions, gold, radies. Cash was raw material, and the US dollar, the currency of the drug trade, was latest. They promised 16% interest. In the 1970s, that was magic. Doctors, lawyers, dentists, they all came running with suitcases of raw material. They wanted to wash their taxes away. But Nugan and Hand weren't interested in dentists. They were hunting bigger game. They needed a front. And to build the ultimate front, they hired the ultimate face. Walk with me into the neon chaos of King's Cross, to the Bourbon and Beefsteak Bar, owned by Bernie Houghton, the Texan, a man with a suitcase full of mystery and a Rolodex full of spies. Look closely at the architecture. There are no doors. The bar is open to the sidewalk 24 hours a day. It implies transparency. But inside, amidst the red curtains and the smell of sizzling steaks, it was a fortress of secrets. This wasn't a bar. It was a recruiting station. Through these doorless arches walked the old boys. The board of directors of Nugan Hand wasn't a bank board. It was the Pentagon. Rear Admiral Earl Buddy Yates, President, Chief of Staff for U.S. Pacific Command, General Leroy Maynor, the man who commanded the San Tay raid, General Edwin Black, OSS veteran. These weren't bankers, they were warriors. And the biggest catch of all, William Colby, the former director of the Central Intelligence Agency, the man who ran the Phoenix program. Why? Why would the men who ran the Vietnam War work for a storefront bank in Sydney? Because the war was over, but the business of the gray area was just beginning. They opened a branch in Chiang Mai, Thailand, the Golden Triangle. Chiang Mai isn't a financial hub. There is no stock market here. There are no corporate headquarters. There is only one export: heroin. The bank accepted deposits from known Thai drug traffickers. They didn't blink. They laundered it. Opium to hides, hides to glassware, glassware to latest. The bank became the bridge between the poppy fields of Asia and the streets of America. Former executives testified that the goal was simple: become the paymasters for the CIA. But to play this game, you have to get your hands dirty. Back in Sydney, Michael Hand wasn't just banking, he was facilitating. Enter Murray Riley, An ex-police detective turned crime boss, a man with a badge in one pocket and a gun in the other. Hand moved $295,000 to Hong Kong for Riley. The money wasn't for real estate, it was for the Anoa shipment, tons of high-grade heroin, the shipment that started Australia's heroin epidemic. The bank wasn't a victim of organized crime. It was organized crime, with a 5-star general on the letterhead. But a machine this dirty runs hot. By 1979, the gears were grinding. Frank Nugan was losing his mind. The liquidity was gone. The auditors were coming, and Frank knew the rules. You can lie to the taxman. You can lie to the investors, but you cannot lie to the old boys. You cannot lose the CIA's money. The clock was ticking. Tick, tock, and at 40 bends, the road was waiting.
January 27th, 1980. The end of the line. Frank pulls the trigger, or someone pulls it for him. It doesn't matter. Frank is the sacrifice. The police find him at dawn. The rifle lies next to him, a .30 caliber. The steel is clean. No fingerprints. Inside the car, the details tell a darker story. A Bible open to page 252, and lying across the holy text, a piece of trash. A meat pie wrapper, greasy, translucent, stained with the oil of cheap Australian street food. But look closer at the grease. Through the stain there are scribbles. 2 names, Bob Wilson, US Congressman, and William Colby, Director of the CIA. The spy master and the fruit heir, connected by a piece of garbage. Why is the spy master's card in a dead banker's car? This wasn't a suicide note. It was a map to the heart of the American deep state. Frank Nugan died trying to be a king, but he left behind the keys to the kingdom.
While the police were staring at the body, the directors of Nugan Hand were busy. They weren't mourning, they were shredding. The shredding party. Imagine the scene. Not a corporate office with shredders humming softly, but a butcher shop, owned by a former army sergeant. The smell of raw meat, sawdust, and fear. Michael Hand stands there. Admiral Yates flies in immediately from the US. They feed the bank's history into the flames, ledgers, client lists, the names of the drug lords, the spies, all turning to ash amidst the carcasses. Hand looks at his staff. He doesn't offer severance, he offers a threat. Do what you are told, or your wives will be cut up and returned to you in bits and pieces. The banker was gone, the soldier had taken command, and the evidence? It vanished into the smoke of a Sydney slaughterhouse, leaving only the silence of the lambs. June 1980. The evidence is gone, the money is gone, and now the soldier must leave. Michael Hand gets a false passport. He walks through Sydney Airport. He boards a plane to Fiji. And then silence. For 35 years, he is a ghost. The Australian government holds royal commissions. They issue warrants, but Michael Hand is nowhere. Until 2015, an investigative breakthrough. Tracks lead to a small town, Idaho Falls, USA. An old man, white beard, neck brace, walking to a pickup truck. His name, Michael John Fuller. He isn't hiding in a cave. He is paying taxes. He is manufacturing tactical knives for special forces. Even in hiding, he was arming the warriors. The FBI knew. The CIA knew. They didn't arrest him. They protected him. How does a bank run by drug lords and generals exist for 7 years? Because it wasn't a mistake. It was a system. Nugan Hand was the prototype, a bank designed to die so the secrets could live. The ghost bank is closed, but the vault remains open.